So, disruption is not a neutral concept. Companies make choices every single day. Do we go out and disrupt, or do we step back, sit back, and get disrupted? There is no issue that is more relevant to senior executives today that wakes them up in a cold sweat at 3 o'clock in the morning than the notion of being disrupted. Now, I've spent my entire career both in the practice of disruption. Reduxio is my 8th consecutive venture capital-backed software company in the enterprise space. I've been fortunate in that the prior 7 companies have all been successful. 2 have gone on through NASDAQ IPOs, and the others have been acquired by companies like AT&T, IBM, Oracle, Symantec, and Iron Mountain. I've had the unique distinction of living both in the world of practicing disruption and studying it as a professor for the last 20 years. 12 of those years at the MIT Sloan School of Management, and for the last 8 years at what has quickly become the world's largest graduate management school, the Holt School of Management. We've got campuses all over the world, and we are also a disruptive case study ourselves, growing from 30 to 5,000 students in the last 10 years, and taking massive market share in the management education market. So when we think about disruption, what do we think about? Okay, and I had retired from the world of startups about 7 years ago to go on and speak and consult. And in my consulting practice, both with McKinsey and my own individual consulting practice, one of the IQ tests I would always ask a client right out of the gate was, are you prepared for disruption? And as you can imagine, more often than not, the answer was an unequivocal yes. Now, Wayne Huizenga is not a shrinking violet. Wayne Huizenga personally started 3 companies that wound up on the Fortune 500. The first one was waste management. The second one was AutoNation, and the third one was Blockbuster. So if you ask Wayne Huizenga, back during the peak of Blockbuster's success in the mid-1990s, when they had 8,000 stores, when they had 60,000 employees, when they had deals with every major Hollywood studio on the planet. Wayne, look at this company coming out of Silicon Valley. By the way, a company started by a guy from the Boston area that went to college at Bowdoin College up north of here, a guy by the name of Reed Hastings. Hastings created a great company called Pure Software. He IPO'd that company in 1995, merged it with Atria in 96, sold it to Rational in 97, went out to Silicon Valley to seek his fortune, like so many entrepreneurs do. And like any person looking for some home entertainment, he rented the movie Apollo 13 from Blockbuster on a Friday night. Forgot to bring it back. The following week, when he finally returned it to the store, what he was told is, Mr. Hastings, that will cost $44, please. Now, the name Hastings is an English surname, but he might as well have been Sicilian, because Hastings did not get mad, he got even. He got very even, okay? And the story of Netflix is a story of disruption, and it continues to be a story of disruption today. So when you ask Huizenga, hey, you got this, Wayne? Yeah, I got this. Well, Wayne don't got this, okay? I don't know what your town's Blockbuster is doing these days, but my town's Blockbuster in Sudbury, Massachusetts is selling dog food today. That's not necessarily what Huizenga had intended. Let's go to beautiful Boston, okay? In 1901, a young man by the name of King Gillette decided that the process of shaving with the old straight razors was not a good experience. Men were being cut constantly. It was a very unpleasant experience. And he came up with the idea of a safety razor. It completely changed the nature of shaving. And what he understood was the importance of the user experience, a theme I will come back to again and again. Why did Blockbuster implode? Because of the user experience of exploiting your customers, preying on human nature and procrastination, and driving your profit model through collection of late fees. Nobody liked late fees, okay? Nobody liked cutting their face with a straight razor. And so Gillette, not only did he invent the safety razor, he invented the most durable business model of all time. A business model which is the razor blade model that has been replicated time and again from the printer industry, from HP and Epson, to the people that make Nespresso and Keurig coffee machines, to the medical supply industry, and yes, even the jet engine industry is a razor blade model. You can buy a jet engine at cost from Pratt & Whitney at GE because they know they've got a 40-year high profit stream of spare parts and maintenance once you bolt that jet engine onto a 757, okay? And for 100 years, 1901 until very recently, Gillette dominated this industry. And then something happened, okay? And the something that happened is another brash upstart, a company called Dollar Shave Club, that with a $5,000 investment put together an in-your-face video on YouTube that generated 20 million views. In the last 5 years, Gillette's market share has fallen from 70% to 55%, and it is in free fall. And they just announced price cuts of around 15%. More importantly, they're trying to replicate the Dollar Shave Club model with the direct-to-consumer model, and they've pissed off CVS, their major distributor, and now they're competing with CVS, okay? Another example of disruption at work on a local level. So we can go through the financial obituaries and the financial intensive care unit reports all day long, but we don't have time for that today, okay? Now, I could teach a semester-long course to you on why large corporations struggle to remain vibrant and innovative, and why it's so difficult for a professor to find case studies of companies that remain innovative generation after generation. But since I don't have time for that, I'm going to sum it up in a single sentence. Robert Nardelli was one of 3 vice chairmen of General Electric under John Welch, the great Jack Welch, the greatest CEO in history. And he sums it up beautifully. There is a fine line between insubordination and entrepreneurship. And what that means is most companies are scared witless about cannibalizing their own businesses, and everything within the company is about preserving the status quo. Very few people share the philosophy of good old Steve Jobs before he passed away, which is if someone's going to cannibalize my company, it's going to be me, okay? And he got that. Nobody captures this better than Dilbert, okay? The great philosopher of our time. We need to disrupt our entire industry, and we need to move quickly, says the inspirational pointy-haired boss. But check with me before we do anything. I want you to think like entrepreneurs, but not the brave ones, okay? That's exactly the way the world really works. So, what you're seeing from 1900, from the days that my grandparents came from Italy through Ellis Island, from the days that our good friends at Gillette started the Gillette Safety Razor Company, is a remarkable compression of what dominance allows companies to do. So in the period from 1900 to 1960, the companies that ruled the earth were manufacturing companies. The great companies of the day, Ford, of course, with the assembly line, RCA, GE, one of the few companies that continues to reinvent itself generation after generation because of its extraordinary leadership. Okay? That was a 60-year epic. And then we moved into the second epic, which is the epic of distribution that was dominated by companies like Walmart and UPS. That epic collapsed by 100%. That was a 30-year epic. And then at the time of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and the guys starting the client server revolution in Silicon Valley, the information age, that epic collapsed yet again to 20 years. And sometime around 2007 to 2010, we entered into the age of the empowered customer. I'm going to talk more about this in a second. But in the age of the empowered customer, everything shifted. People become CEOs of big companies because they're control freaks. There's no other way to become the CEO of a big company, okay? When you live in the age of the empowered customer, everything flips on its head. And when everything flips on its head, it makes it very difficult for large corporations to manage themselves. Okay, social media, the interactive web have changed everything. Okay? And it's only getting faster. So this is just a point in time. What you may or may not know is that in the year 2007, everything happened. In the year 2007, roughly 10 years ago, we saw something that we've never seen before. The birth of the iPhone and the Android, the internet in your pocket, the birth of the biggest country in the world, Facebook, with 2 billion citizens, the birth of powerful video-based storytelling in YouTube with Twitter. Okay, this was the beginning of a consumer technology revolution, the likes of which we've never seen before. And then on the infrastructure side, Intel started using a lot of non-silicon material so that they could extend Moore's Law. We saw the birth of IBM Watson in cognitive computing. We saw the democratization of big data with Hadoop. Okay, we saw GitHub, which became a profound platform for coding and social sharing. These are the kinds of things that were all brought to the world in 2007, an extraordinarily important year. Okay? And so many of you in the room are in retail, you're in healthcare, you're in finance, you're in automotive, you're in education. I can't imagine a single person in this room that has not felt the effects or will not continue to feel the effects of disruption. Okay? I can put up market maps for pretty much any industry that you're in, and they'll all look exactly alike. The amount of investment, the amount of innovation, the amount of competitive intensity flowing into all of our market spaces is becoming overwhelming and impossible to keep up with. This is the education tech market. It could be fintech, it could be retail tech, it could be auto tech, it could be anything. In my own world, from Reduxio, marketing technology, marketing automation, 2,500 companies on the list. Okay? And now we're entering into the fourth industrial revolution, the combination of cyber and physical systems. Okay? This was the theme of Davos and the World Economic Forum. This is drones, this is robots, this is artificial intelligence, this is machine learning. And it's only going to come faster and more powerful. Okay? And so the question then you have to ask yourself is, does your organization have innovation in its bones? Are you a disruptor or are you being disrupted? And I know what's a lot more fun, trust me. Okay? And once again, we go back to the great philosopher of our time, Dilbert. And what's the pointy head boss say? We want to foster more of a startup culture to drive innovation. So we get to dress casually, work flex hours, feel that our work is valued, and we get equity in the company? Not really. Okay? What would be the name of a culture where people get to work hard but don't get any of the things that you just mentioned? Okay? If you do not create a culture that allows innovation to flourish, you don't get innovation. There's no shortcuts. And so today, what are some of the areas that are the most ripe for disruption? The single most fruitful area today is when you can remove complex, inefficient experiences. User experience innovation is an extremely important approach today in this highly competitive world that we live in. And so here's a guy, he may not look like an anarchist, Sean Fanning, 19-year-old, Northeastern University student, clean-shaven, baseball cap representing the great Boston Red Sox. Looks like a pretty clean-cut kid, but make no mistake, he was an anarchist. He decimated the music industry and is yet to recover from the Napster experience. Now, what's fascinating about this instance is that there were many companies that could have profited from the MP3 era. Certainly Sony was a dominant force with the Walkman. You had Panasonic, you had Samsung, you had all of these Japanese and South Korean consumer electronics manufacturers, but none of them did. The company that capitalized, of course, was this one, Apple. This was the product that brought Apple back from the brink of bankruptcy. Why did Apple capitalize when no one else did? Because Steve Jobs took a human-centric design. He said the consumption and the discovery of music should be a joyous experience, not a frustrating one. If you played with MP3 files on a Diamond Rio or on a Sony Walkman, it sucked. I don't know any other way to describe it. Okay? The appliance approach of an optimized iTunes, iPod device was exactly what mankind wanted at that time, and Apple is now the largest retailer of recorded music on the planet. They came out of right field. They were a laptop manufacturer that now dominates the music industry. And I don't even need to tell you what they did to our good friends at BlackBerry, okay? That's another blockbuster experience right there. They own the market, and they fumbled it.